Today's show is brought to you by BrowTog.com. BRAUTAG, the new BrowTog Premium Brewing System, is a high-quality Herm system developed by yours truly to take your brewing to the next level. And by yours truly, I mean Todd and James. The BrowTog consists of 3 premium stainless steel 20-gallon kettles, perfect for brewing 15-gallon batches, and each comes equipped with durable ball valves and easy-to-use stainless steel quick connects. The BrowTog controller is an innovative, no-nonsense controller developed to make your brew day better. It's easy to understand, which makes it easier for you to fully control the brewing process. Dial in your temperatures with ease and control the entire process at the flick of a switch or the push of a button. The BrowTog also comes with 2 premium centrifugal pumps and all the necessary cables conveniently labeled just for you. Go to browtog.com and learn more about our special introductory offer, which includes $500 off MSRP, free shipping, and a ton of free add-ons, such as a 15-gallon recipe kit of your choice, 3 packs of liquid imperial yeast, a premium refractometer, pH meter and testing kit, a 1-year membership to Brewer's Friend Premium, Sandstep sanitizer, Brew Clean, and more. Head over to browtog.com to find a list of our retail partners and let us help make your brew day better.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Airlock activity, when to use gelatin, immersion versus counterflow chillers, and dry versus liquid yeast when making a starter. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 237. There it is. Hey, welcome to the Homebrew.
That sounds so weird.
Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question that you would like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. Today, I am joined by the Director of Operations at CM Becker, right down there, Mr. James Carlson, as well as over my right shoulder, he is the President and Resident Chief Keg Washer of KegConnection.com. It's my right shoulder. This right, you're right there, Mr. Todd Burns. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Yeah, you actually, you always say where people are, and they're never where you say they are on my screen. Yeah, I don't even know why you bother.
There. Josh is there on my screen.
When people watch it on YouTube,
actually seeing it, if that's where it would be.
When people watch it on YouTube, they're going to see it from my screen, so they're seeing you're over my right shoulder, right there. James, you're right below me. You're right though, Todd. I need to find a way, because you give me so much grief when I say things. They're like, "Oh, look at the Trub Club logo popped up on the screen." You're like, "I don't see it. I don't see it." Well, yeah, because I need to find a way to capture everything I see and transmit it so it's what you see.
Yeah, because if I don't see it, I don't believe you.
Exactly. Oh, and believe me, working for you for 13 years, I've had to be very clever in finding ways for you to see what I'm doing. We are very happy to have everyone back. Thank you for joining us for another fun-filled episode this week. We've had a lot going on. First off, it's July. We're past the halfway point of the year. We're going into the second half. That's crazy to me. It's crazy. Yeah. We have a 4th of July party on Saturday. My pop invited y'all. Are y'all going to be there?
I probably won't, because I'm on a deadline to get my rough-in electrical work done so they can start the sheetrock in my garage. So
yeah,
I'm working on my old Camaro.
Are you really?
So yeah,
no way.
We're going to start getting it ready to run.
Dude, and I know
I'm excited about that.
I know also, normally, James, like late July, August is when you do your beach trip. With Germany coming up, please tell me you've still got beach trip lined up for
Oh, yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last week of July, Emily and I are going to go to Port A.
Okay, perfect. Good. I mean, I'm glad, just because I know that's been like your thing as long as I've known you. And
yeah. You know, I would take vacation, but I'd stay home. And Todd was like, no, you're not doing that.
I didn't know that.
And he got me on to going to the beach. That was the first time I ever went.
Oh,
you know?
no way.
And I was like, wow, this is awesome. So that's been my go-to every year.
I'm not sure how this happened. I got you on that. And now this year I'm staying home.
Don't make it a habit. Don't make it a habit.
I'm taking off a lot of Fridays so I can get this construction stuff we're doing done. And I'm not going to take a vacation this year. So, I miss vacation.
I'm going to Port A August 1st through the 5th.
So next week,
right? The next week I'll be there.
Cool.
Yeah, it'll be fun. That was when we did a house, like between my dad and myself. My brother's family comes too, and we got the same place we got last year. We liked it so much. There was another one my dad was looking at, but things were booking up quick. I think post-COVID living, people are just want a vacation now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Have you noticed the prices just went crazy high? We got the same place we got 2 years ago. And it was almost twice as much.
Yeah. I believe it.
And we wanted, you know what? You were telling me about the condo or the house that y'all got.
Yeah, with the pool.
We looked at that because I told Emily we'd get a golf cart, you know, and
yep.
You know, after selling the car, I had a little extra money for vacation. Nah, I'm not going to blow that kind of money up for two people. No way.
I was going to say it's different with us, right? When you're splitting it between families and whatnot,
right?
Like it's a little different, but it's a massive house. The one we get, it's overkill. My wife and I, Christy, did a vacation last December and got a 3-2, and because it was off season, it was pretty affordable. It didn't have a pool, but it had a hot tub. That's all she wanted, and I was like, well, we can go to like these condominium complexes, and she was like, yeah, but you have to share those hot tubs. And I was like, when did you get all bougie? And like,
yeah, no kid. You know, does your dad split it like my dad and between me and my brother? My dad always says, well, let's get that, you know, feeder for the deer feeder for the ranch and we'll split it 3 ways. I'm like, okay. He's like, yeah, you pay 50% and your brother pays 50%.
You know, no, honestly, my dad booked everything. I haven't given him any money yet. So
okay.
No, he has not at all done that. I would have felt probably better about it. He's gonna have to remind me because I'm so forgetful. He'll think that I'm doing the slow grab like I do to you, Todd, when we're at lunch or breakfast. And they bring the check and you look at me and I'm like, oh, hold on.
Alligator arms.
Yeah. And then finally you're like, oh, okay, I'll pay for it. I'm like, oh, no, let me get it. Or lately, James, we've been going to cash only places and I don't carry cash. So, hey.
Guilty. I don't either because it's gone. If it's in my wallet, I'll just get that.
Exactly. I'm the same way.
God, I have to have cash all the time. I can't stand not having cash on me.
I know. That's why I like going to cash only places.
We should do it. We should talk about brewing and
no, I like talking about cash. Yeah, you're right. You know
homebrew and beer. And
Todd is foreshadowing the comments we're going to get on this episode when people go to you. Let me say this before I segue into our show and like the small talk part. We have people who find some episodes because they did a keyword search, and like we did an episode once on like natural carbonation in a keg. And they're new to our show. They don't know our format. And so they immediately thumbs down the video and they go to the comment like, I don't know why, but they just jibber jabber for 12 minutes and they didn't even get to the natural carbonation part till the 18th minute after doing some other question. What a waste of my time. So y'all empower me when you give me that kind of feedback. I mean, I don't like seeing the thumbs down or the negative feedback on our iTunes, but if you tell me, Josh, don't do, like, you need to know the format of what every episode in the description, it says, this is episode number 237 of a podcast, and we do a Q&A, and here's what we're going to talk about, blah, blah. But they're like, no, the title said this, and that's all I came here for. I don't know, man. It's my experience with Reddit, too. I always get shadow banned. I'll post something, and then it won't be seen, or it'll get thumbs down to oblivion. But anyways.
Yeah, I mean, that happens to me all the time when I'm looking for stuff. I just scroll through everything. Whoop. I don't want to hear about the coast. I just want to get to my
I know, Todd. I know. Everybody is a boomer like you. No, kidding aside. We love everyone who comes, even the haters. We love you.
We love the haters.
Small talk. All the Trub Club recipes did get shipped out this week. If you need a tracking code, if you haven't gotten it yet, you can message me. Text me at 325-305-6107 for the most immediate reply from me. I've said this before to our community on on Patreon, those messages, I almost never get the notification. So I check it twice a day. I check it in the morning and I check it at night. And so if you send it either after the night one, I'm not going to reply to you till the morning. If you send it to me, you know what I mean? There's going to be some breaks in between communication. If you want instantaneous, our hotline is also directly to me. I don't know how dangerous or what I'm going to get now in my inbox, but 325-305-6107 if you ever have a question for the show or about our Trub Club or any of that stuff. But yes, the Kolsch and the Weiss beer all shipped out this week.
Yeah.
So
and it did take us a while. I'll tell you, we are really having a hard time getting items, all draft beer items, ingredients, everything. There's just shortages on everything right now. We couldn't get grain. We finally got our grain shipment in, but I've never, and the whole time we've been doing this, we've never had an issue getting grain.
3-week delay on that grain. It was 3 weeks.
I know, it was ridiculous.
It was like you said, everything. And I always am. I don't know if in awe is the right way to say it, but like every industry, I went to get my oil change, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we don't have any cars, chip shortage." We just have a shortage, and used cars are costing so much, and everybody just has a shortage. So it's been, we're doing our best. And I like to, thankfully, our community, I've said this before 1,000 times, is the best community ever in the history of any podcast I've ever produced or any online community. Very understanding. And we appreciate that because we're a very, very small mom and pop operation. So we appreciate your patience when things get delayed, but the recipe kits have gotten shipped out. So you should be brewing soon. Thankfully, same with Imperial, with their yeast to us. Remember, James, FedEx dropped the ball on their shipment, and they had to resend an entire pallet full of yeast to us.
Oh, they shipped it to our hot. They kept it in a hot warehouse over the weekend, so we had to get it replaced.
Yeah, it's just when things go.
We're
wrong.
trying. Keep ordering. Please keep ordering.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Keep ordering. Which is a good segue to the Brautag. It is available. It is shipping out. We've got them in stock. James is testing them and putting his seal of approval on all the controllers. It's been the HomebrewCon presentation. In case you missed it and you didn't listen to last week's episode, we've published it on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Homebrew Happy Hour. Go watch what we did. We did a presentation on Herms Brewing. And by we, like I said in the commercial, I mean Todd and James. They presented on Herms Brewing. They covered all the basics, and they featured the Brautag. So if you want to learn more about it, you can go to brautag.com, BRAUTAG. You can see our retail partners, spoiler alert, Keg Connection and Homebrew Supplier on there, as well as our friends at Keg Outlet. They hopped on board too. They're carrying the Brautag.
They have financing right now, which we don't, but I am very confident we'll have it before we do the next podcast. However, I was very confident we would have it before we did this con.
I stop at zooting confidence in anything because I said we'd have Trub Club offerings on our own website by June 1st, or I might have said May 1st, and our server issues are still not resolved. We have an awesome community member who's been helping us try to navigate it, and it's like boiling down to the point where like we have our database on host monsters who we use is just so. Our whole VPS account is just a cluster. So we're trying to navigate that and get it fixed. But anyway, besides the Brautag, I don't think I have any other small talk except let me go ahead and get us into the show, starting with some listener feedback. It's time for listener feedback. And this week's listener feedback came from our buddy Darren, who texted me at 325-305-6107. Darren wrote, I just wanted to give Todd a shout out for making the teaser build video so easy to understand. I was able to score a working chest freezer at a yard sale, and now I have a new weekend project in the works. I'm looking forward to getting some beautiful V10 faucets too. Cheers. Darren, that was HomebrewCon last year, which was all very well received. Todd, how many calls do you think you get a month directly related to that presentation?
A lot. A lot of people reach out to me by email, by phone, and say, hey, I have a question from the video. I'm amazed at wow, we've gotten so much off of that video. People seem to really appreciate it. I think it is. If you watch that video, you can build a keezer. I mean, my rule of thumb is, if I had to take Josh Stubing and he didn't know anything about it, I want for him to be able to build a keezer by the time we're done.
Yeah, I could build a keezer. I can brew on a Herm system. I don't know.
You can.
Yes, you can.
You can. Yay.
I don't know. So patronizing, Todd.
So easy to do too.
It
By the
really-
way,
well,
people have no clue how easy it is.
Yeah.
You know, they get intimidated by all the equipment that it makes it so much easier to brew.
And I know you're talking about the Herms. I will also say how easy it is to build a keezer. Like, I think, not to downplay anything we do for a living, making a podcast is easy, but no, build like draft systems can be intimidating. But once you just understand the basics, like y'all's presentation did, the information y'all presented on, it's very like, oh, wait, that's not, it's just, it looks like a lot, but once you understand how it works, it's not that bad. Same with, like you said, with Herms. Herms is a whole different beast in my book, where it's like, I'll just stick on this drain father, or I'll just stick on this cooler. And then when you actually work on the 3 vessel and you're like, oh my God, how easy, like this is actually, it's easier to brew, in my opinion, consistent good beer on a Herms than it is on the cooler brew. And the cooler brew,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like, just because of how much control you have, because it's electric, and maybe I'm saying that too because I like brewing indoors now. I'm turning bougie too. Indoor brewing is the way to go. I want to do that from now on.
People brew outdoors.
No, I'm not. I mean, not frequently when it's this temperature.
They realize there's no air conditioning out there, right?
I know, it's crazy. The wind normally is just not enough when it's 108. But anyways, Darren, thank you so much. This is a good time to tell y'all before I get into the questions. When you submit a question or feedback and we take it on a future episode, we do give you a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. So let's get into the first question of this week. Came from our buddy Michael, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Micah, wrote, "Hi, I'm a beginner new to all of this with a short question for you. If there is bubbling in my airlock, then that means the beer is not done, right? It's day 7 of bubbling in my airlock. Should I be happy or concerned?" Micah, I think if there's activity in your airlock, that's always a good sign. But James, is there such thing as too long of a fermentation?
Yeah, there you can. That could be sign of infection if you have continuous fermentation. Then, but I would tell you this: just do a gravity reading on it and test it, and see how it tastes. It's probably just sometimes yeast take their own sweet time getting done.
Yep,
and that's probably all it is. But it is possible to have continuous endless fermentation due to bacteria infection. But I don't think I haven't had that happen. I don't know if you have, Todd.
No, I've never had it happen. I've definitely had beers take 7 days though. I mean, I still see signs of fermentation sometimes in the secondary where, I just happen to walk by and it'll bubble and it's been in there a long time. It's still fermenting a little bit for a long time, I think. So
I replied,
it's nothing to worry about.
I had replied to Micah because some details that I didn't know might help y'all, and he hadn't gotten back to me yet. And he actually submitted this question like 8 months ago. So sorry, Micah, it took me this long. I'm on day 172 of airlock activity. No, does it matter if it's a lager or an ale, James? I mean, lagers are going to typically be longer, slower.
Lagers take a little longer to ferment, of course, because it's colder temperatures and the yeast aren't as active at cooler temperatures. But yeah, I mean, Todd's exactly right. I've had beer ferment 14 days. It used to, when I first started brewing extract, that was what I was told, and that's what I read. 14 days, give it 14 days. And if you still see airlock activity, take a gravity reading, take a taste, and everything seems all right, let it go until it hits final gravity. But
have you ever?
Yeah, and I've had them where I've tested them 5 days later, and they're well below what my final gravity was supposed to be. So
yeah,
you just never know. Yeah, and I would say this: I'm going to go out on a limb. So that 8 months would be 240 days. If it's still bubbling, I think you got a problem.
Yeah, it's probably infected. I wouldn't even open the lid; just throw the whole thing away.
Poor Micah has been waiting for me to take his question on the show, and I have failed you, Micah. So tell me this: have you, either one of you, ever taken your you see airlock activity, you take your reading, you're happy with it, and you go ahead and transfer into keg or to secondary or whatever? Have you ever done that while there's still activity going on, James?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Just from impatience.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. But I guess the key point of that is, as long as the numbers are there, right? As long as your numbers are there.
If I'm trying to hit 10-12 and it's at 10-14, you can kind of do a little cheat and get it in the keg. The only problem is you'll generate still, if it's still continuing on, you'll generate a little trub at the bottom, or you can just chill it down, cool it down, and it'll stop. But
yeah, it's okay to stop. It's okay to stop it if you're at the gravity you want it. If you let it keep going too long, it could get too dry. If it's actually possible for a beer to be too dry, but it could get too dry. So
it could get outside the flavor profile you want. But generally, you want it to hit the final gravity where you want to be. But that doesn't always happen. There's ways to manipulate a flavor profile, and one of them is cold crashing it. It'll stop it. You can cold crash, and then you can filter and keg, and that will help take some of the yeast out as well. So if you remove the yeast, there's nothing left to ferment.
And I've been on the other end, especially when we switched to using Imperial for every batch. I couldn't tell you the last time. I think I think my dad used 05 on a batch because I didn't bring back the right yeast for what we were brewing, and so he went to our buddies at SoCo there in South Austin and got a pack of 05, I think. But either way, I've been on the other end with Imperial where it's like, man, it's bubbling early. Is that okay? And then, come to realize like, hey, yeah, it is okay. It's fine. Like it's been making good beer. But thankfully, we've had delayed starts on some of our batches before, and then they take off. I have never had what I guess you would call too long. 7 days is probably the higher end of what we see activity. Usually our batches, man, it's like 72 hours. You know what I mean? Like it's like they're done and we hit our numbers and hey, let's transfer because we're impatient too, dude. We want to get this transferred, clearing up a little bit and then serving it. So go ahead.
When you're done with the question, I want to change the subject for a second.
Okay, we did. I was wrapping it up, Micah. I think that helps. 7 days. You're not. I think we all agree. Yeah. You're not in the range of like, oh my God, that's really long. Yeah. 7 days is pretty normal. Like James said,
that is
10 days,
pretty normal.
14 days. That's not the most abnormal. But if you're concerned, 8 months later, take your reading next batch that this happens to, and if you're at your numbers, like James said, cold crash it and stop it if you don't want more fermentation. So yeah, that wraps it up. Todd, go ahead. You wanted to change the subject.
All right. So I forgot to bring this up during the small talk. I don't know if Imperial is bringing out a seasonal called Bartleby, and it's one of those Kiev. How do you say that? KV. Is it
Quebec?
Quebec. It's a Quebec strain. I've never brewed with a Quebec. Joe did it once.
He did.
And he kind of left it in my container too long, and I don't think it worked out. But anyway, I want to try it again. So I thought y'all are going to be very excited about this. I was reading it. It is citrusy, fruity, hazy, IPA, juicy, Norwegian peach. So I'm thinking about doing a hazy IPA out of that and doing it like fermenting it like 85 degrees in my container.
Oh, wow.
I changed the screen to show all of us because I could see James's face. When you were reading the descriptors, James's face was like
pass.
Yeah. I got to try it. I've been dying. I don't know why, but I tried a few hazy IPAs and I liked them. I want to brew a hazy IPA now. I know you guys have lost total respect for me now and hate me, but I want to try.
I've got to look this up and see what it says.
Todd, we have not picked. Next week is when we are going to decide, finalize, and announce the July recipes. Why don't you figure out a recipe where we might be able to incorporate that and get with him? I can get with Imperial and see about for our Chub Club members if we can get a recipe and include that. And even if we, even if we have to make one up, let's get with Lorena. She's been good at making recipes for us. And
yeah, I mean, I hate to do one though if we haven't ever brewed it or nobody's ever brewed it. What if it sucks and we send it out to?
It's okay. Well, all of us would suck together. Collectively as a Chub Club. I think it'd be more fun if everyone brews it and maybe we do maybe we get some feedback from Chub Club members on how theirs turned out. I think that'd be actually a lot of fun.
If you'll brew it and send samples, I will make Josh and
James.
If at all possible, I'll try to make Josh and James both try it and give their feedback.
I will.
I'll definitely try it.
I will.
You see the fermentation temps at 98 degrees. Man, that's just not right.
That's what's bizarre. It says temp range 68 to 98.
So is it going to start fermenting in the shipment in the back of the FedEx? Is it just going to take? I mean, obviously, I know it needs the work. And stuff,
anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. I'm anxious to try one. I've been dying to try one for like 3 summers in a row, and I never get around to it. So I'm committing to it. So y'all can give me hell if I don't do it now.
I think we need to brew one. It's a Norwegian strain, so I should like it.
You should. That's your people, man. That's your people.
Yeah, those are your people.
I'm always torn. Yeah. I'm always torn between Modelo and some German beer. That's the halfsy of me. I'm torn apart.
Well, in Modelo, German beer.
Is it?
Get right down to it.
Or it's
wasn't it German immigrants?
I don't. You know what? And I'm always lost on what a Mexican style lager is because I always thought,
is it Modelo or Modelo Negra that you're talking about?
Oh, which one?
Or Negra Modelo or Modelo?
Yeah. Negra is the Vienna, right?
It's not. No, the Vienna is the Dos Equis dark.
Oh,
and that's
I'm
a
thinking
Vienna
of Dos
style.
Equis. Yeah.
I think I looked it up the other day and I can't remember. Don't make me lie, but I like the Negra Modelo as well.
No, I actually do. You've stocked them before in your beer fridge. I don't mind it at all.
Definitely. It's a great beer.
Now, what was the one that the crew stocked in your fridge recently? Not the Bud Light. That's obviously theirs. Was it was it Corona Especial?
Oh, they had. I forgot. Something like
last
that.
night, Tyler, you want one?
They have one that's like a familiar, or
that's the one that people bring a lot. I have a friend. He left a case. He left like a case of it last year when they came hunting and stuff. I was like, dude, you left a case of that for me? Are you kidding me?
That's how you know that. Look, when I bring really good beer to a place, like I'm going to bring some good beer to the party this weekend, even though we have good beer on tap. I'm bringing a keg of good beer from our friends at Teddy's Brew House. I'm going to be bringing some booze from there. I'm going to be getting beer. And I guarantee you, I'm not leaving anything there. Like if it's a beer I like, I'm going to take at least some of it back if it doesn't completely get depleted.
Oh, it's his favorite kind of beer. So anyway,
we totally digress from my
question since I interrupted all that.
You did,
Sorry.
and it was a long enough deterrence for me to remind everybody if and when you do submit a question, we take it on a future episode. You get a $25 gift card to ketconnection.com. So question number 2 comes from our buddy Ronnie, who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Ronnie wrote, James mentions filtering his beer. I'm interested in using gelatin first before filtering. Do I add the gelatin while my batch is still in the fermenter, or do I wait until I keg it? I've never used gelatin, guys, like fining agents like gel. I've used
Todd has.
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't actually know what he meant when he said gelatin. I was like, gelatin? Because I use gelatin for some other things, and like pectin. I thought he meant that. So he's talking about the fining agent.
I think that's
I've used it before.
That clear 2-part that you've used in the past.
I had to clear up a beer. I really needed to clear up a beer a while back, and I used it. It worked really well.
When did you apply it? Was it while it was still in the fermenter, or did you wait till you kegged?
No. When I was done with it. Yeah.
Is there a reason for? I mean, again, I'm not trying to just.
No, you did the fining in the keg or in the fermenter?
No, in the when I cold crashed it, like in the secondary at the end before.
Okay, so you performed the fining in the fermenter and not the keg. Yeah, because I've never used it. Yeah,
in
the secondary glass carboy. Yeah,
and I suspected doing it in the fermenter mainly because whatever is protein's the right word, James?
When you say fermenter, I think of like during fermentation, but I'm talking about in the secondary after when I'm cold crashing.
Todd, I don't want to argue semantics. The secondary is still a fermenter. It's a fermentation vessel. I don't want to.
Technically, I think you're right, Josh.
I like to think of it as a bright tank.
I like to think of it as pre-keg.
Cold crash, 5-gallon carboy glass.
It's a pre-keg, just like my doctor says. I have pre-diabetes. It's pre-keg.
It is a secondary until I put the finer in there, and then it's not a secondary anymore.
James,
it's a bright tank.
Or Todd.
Okay, so now everybody listening is completely confused right now.
That was the whole point.
Yeah. Okay, back to understanding it for Ronnie. I would recommend, off of my zero experience and didn't even Google it before because I'm at headquarters and I totally forgot to do homework before this. I would suspect if you do it in secondary, or if you don't use secondary, you're in a primary and you're doing your cold conditioning like Todd was talking about. If you do it at that point, I think it enables that process of dropping the proteins to the bottom. That way, when you're transferring, that all stuff stays in your secondary or your primary, or wherever you're doing this at, so that you're not transferring any of that into your keg. Or if you do it in your keg, James, I imagine you're going to get some of that stuff drop into the bottom of your keg.
Yeah,
right? I mean, potentially. I just don't know.
I don't know. Todd, do you have to cool it down before you add the gel packs? I've seen it. It's a 2-part gel pack, and then you add it into the fermenter, and then do you cool it, or do you cool it first and then add it?
No, I add it before I cool it. People use it in wine all the time. I don't remember. I know there's 2 parts. I don't exactly remember the process. It's super simple. There's instructions on the packet. Okay. I just read the instructions and did whatever it said.
What I do remember, though, I know the best friend for the gelatin to work is cold beer. So obviously you're not going to be doing this during fermentation. I mean, the best friend for the gelatin to work is the colder your beer, the better, the more effective it'll be. I do remember that until someone.
So I would think that you probably want to mix it in before you cool it down, kind of like Jello, maybe. I don't know either. I don't know.
I'd have to go get the instructions to look. I don't remember.
Yeah,
but it's fairly, from what I've seen and what you did, it was fairly effective.
Yeah, it's real effective. I used it in wine too when I've made wine. I think it's really common in wine, but yeah, I mean, it works great. And if you have one that you're having a hard time, I don't ever use it anymore because we have such good facilities to cold crash now that we just don't need it, you know?
Right. Well, let me ask you this, because I'm not sure. I've never used gelatin, but do you think it would be better to have the keg dip tube cut a little taller? Or, I mean, does the gelatin stay as at the bottom, or is it the first thing to come out when
it grabs all the stuff and drops it to the bottom? And then when you move it from the secondary to the keg, it's clear and it's not in there anymore.
Okay. So you would agree that cutting the dip tube would probably help prevent pulling some of that into the keg when you're transferring from the fermenter into a keg?
Well, you mean the dip tube in the keg you're transferring into? Well, it should be clear. It should be clear by the time it gets there.
Yeah. Well, the only reason why I bring it up is there any chance that when you're transferring it over, you can get some of that gelatin into the keg and it can get picked up by the dip tube? That's the only reason why I bring that up.
Just like when I transfer, from any secondary, you're always going to get a little bit of that yeast in the bottom, because I end up sticking the dip tube all the way down and there's yeast, and pulling it up just a little bit. So yeah, you could get some in there. Yeah. Okay. I mean, most of my I don't know. I used to have almost all my kegs cut, and we've been getting such clear beer. I just haven't worried about it, because usually if I get a little bit of crap in there, I let it sit for a week or so. Even if it's at the very bottom, it sucks it up in the first glass. I pour the first glass out and go from there.
Okay. So if you're using the gelatin as a fining agent, and you do get, when you're transferring from your fermenter into your keg, after you've run the gelatin, if you do get some of that, it'll usually, because I don't know what form it is. Is it like
it's just like yeast. I mean, it's not gonna, it wouldn't, like, I've never had it like clog, get really rubbery and clog something up. It just, I couldn't even tell it was in there, really.
Oh, okay. I'll have to do that one of these days just to see how it works.
Don't y'all remember the days when it was a staple of homebrew to have yeast in the bottle with it and have the floaties?
Yeah, and you swirl the bottle and rouse the yeast, and
that was how you knew. Oh, you brewed this yourself. Okay.
There was a couple of German beers that we would get bottle conditioned, and you could see a little bit of a yeast on the bottom of the.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If you're bottle beer, you're always going to have yeast in it.
Right.
Because when you put the priming sugar in, it's going to.
And if we have yeast or particle,
fall to the bottom.
If we serve beer to friends and they have yeast or any kind of hot particles in it, I tell them that's a feature, not a flaw. Like, that's how you know it was homemade, organic, craft, artisan. I use buzzwords. I thought I had a tag to. Oh, James, I know I was going to ask you. When you filter? Do you forego all other clarifying techniques? Do you still use Whirlflock or Irish Moss, or do you?
I never use any of that. Never.
Because
I just Whirlpool.
Right. Oh, I forgot about that. No, you're right. The Whirlpool is step one of helping out with clarity of your beer.
Yeah, Todd's blessed us with really good equipment, so some of that stuff, it's just not anything we worry about.
Yeah, and also though with the Whirlflock, like if you were brewing like on the cooler in a kettle that you're not gonna maybe necessarily be able to easily whirlpool. Not arguing with people who are about to email me saying you can always whirlpool because what to do. I know, but let's just pretend I'm a total idiot. It's a stretch of the imagination. I get it.
Well, a lot of people won't do that
if
they think that they can use a fining agent like Irish Moss or Whirlflock tablet in the last 15 minutes of the boil.
But if you know,
so back when we were doing the big batches, we would use quite a bit of Irish Moss, and we'd always put it in the last 15 minutes of the brew, and it worked because we had no way of whirlpooling at that time. We didn't know we had the ability. We had a pump and all that. We could have whirlpooled it. We just never did.
Right.
And we would use that, and we get them from White Labs, and it would come in a big old vial, I think.
Yeah,
that's a long time ago. That was 15 years ago.
But if you know,
I still use Whirlflock. I put it in 5 minutes before the boil ends.
Right. But I meant if you know you're going to filter, do you still need to use clarifying agents? Like if you know you're going to filter, you probably wouldn't need to plan on using gelatin because you're filtering as you're transferring. So
right. Some people still would as just a habit. I mean, I just don't use it.
Yeah. Okay.
The clearer you get it, the better it is to keep from clogging up your filters and stuff too, though. You don't want to soup. I've tried to filter beer before where I just filled the filter up full of crap, it wouldn't even flow anymore.
That's disgusting.
I haven't had an issue with if you use a highly flocculent yeast, something that's real powdery, that might be an issue, but we also cold crash and let it set enough to where most of that's at the bottom. So when you run it through a 1 micron, if you went through a half a micron filter, I use the 10-inch, 2-inch by 10-inch filter housings you can get from Amazon. And those cartridges are, as long as you're 1 micron or up, you could even tie 2 together, put a 5 micron for the inlet, and then the outlet filter housing, make them 1 micron, and it would help too. But I use the harvest yeast, and then I'll do just 1 hop addition, whirlpool it, put it in the conical, let it go through its thing. When it's ready, cold crash it, let that set a few days, and then I'll pump it through the filter, and it works fine. I really honestly haven't had any issues.
Right. And I was just saying, Ronnie, like the beautiful thing about this show and the beautiful thing about homebrewing, there's a million different ways of getting to clear beer. And you may not be at I've got a conical with glycol, I'm doing this stage yet, but the gelatin will help you get clear beer. And the cold conditioning and letting it take its time will get you clear beer. My dad and I, in the extract days and not having temperature control at all, besides his home closet for fermentation and whatever, we still produce very clear beer. You know what I mean? I like how there's a ton of ways to get there, but it's still easy, or it's still possible to achieve clear beer even without what you might perceive as being a hassle or expensive equipment or whatever. But James's whole setup,
there's a will, there's a way.
People have been begging us for your video.
And I'm Todd's right. That could have, those filters absolutely could clog up and make your day hell. I've just been lucky it hasn't been an issue in the last few times that I've filtered.
Yeah, people have been begging for a video. Like, I want to see James filtering. I was like,
we got to do a video of that. That's a great idea.
Yeah. And the next time I do, I'm going to do another batch of my American light lager, and because I'm tweaking that recipe a little bit, and I think I've got it where I want it to be. And we'll do a video on that.
We crushed some of that light lager last summer, I believe it was. Is that the last batch you made? Was last summer or was it last spring?
It's been a while. It was before we did all the hot batches.
Right. I think it was last summer, because I remember I drank a lot of it on Todd's tap. Yeah. I did that last night.
It's a good session beer, I would say.
It is. Very refreshing.
It's like the beer we have right now on tap. I mean, we have so much of it. I'm just in hog heaven.
That pale?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you
really liked that one last night that James did.
I did. I liked it a lot.
That was the Paradigm.
It was the Paradigm hop.
Yeah. That's the mildest one, I think, out of the ones I've tasted.
Yeah. I got smashed. I'll admit it. I got smashed. I'm at the barn. I can do what I want. And it was just me and Todd. It was like club night.
My wife's out of town. It was like,
go party. Y'all go to Teddy's tonight.
Yeah, I told her that. I told Josh that when my wife's away, I have no regulation whatsoever. She needs to come back. Liz, you need to come home.
You really
I'm out of control.
You do. He wasn't wearing pants. I was like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh."
I don't remember the not wearing pants part. No, that is awkward.
Yeah, let's be honest. Actually, Todd put me to work. We got back to the ranch and we went and helped his dad. We put down a whole yard of grass. And then we went back and put the rest of it down at Todd's. I was put to work, man. I feel like
we unloaded a whole pallet of grass and put it in the ground. James.
Yeah. My back would have hated that.
I don't have muscles, but if I did, you'd
I'm
see
making him work for his beer now.
Yes.
We got tonight's electrical night. So.
Oh, geez. I've got a lot of work to do here, boss. But anyway, Ronnie, thank you so much for submitting your question.
Yep, good question.
It's a great question. And speaking of that, we have two more great questions for y'all, starting with our third question of the show. Came from our buddy Jose G, who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Jose wrote, "Hey, Josh, Todd, and James, your podcast is a great part of my drive. I am looking to upgrade the post-boil side of my stuff. That being said, I can't pick between immersion or counterflow. I have been around long enough to know you use immersion. I'd like to know why you use immersion and why not counterflow. Surely it cannot be due to cost since Josh has Todd's money. Thanks, Jose." Jose, it's not due to cost, and don't call me Shirley. No, I took that question for that joke. I use immersion because Todd asked me to start. No, Todd not asked me. Todd recommended the two immersion system we do and that y'all do on brew days has been pretty effective for me and my dad. We've gotten our it doesn't take a long time to get down to pitching temp, and it's pretty affordable as a solution. And to me, especially at retail cost, counterflows are very pricey. Now, with that being said, James, are counterflows pricey because they're worth the money, or why are they so pricey?
If they're built right, like Blinkman makes what's called a Therminator, it's a very good, efficient heat exchanger. And a lot of people swear by them. We had well water on Big Bertha, and we didn't throttle valves when we were chilling our wort. We'd let it blast out the Therminator and it would come out 70 degrees. It was amazing.
Oh, wow.
But we had cooler well water.
Yeah.
It's all about the source water temp can affect how a chiller works, and everybody knows that. Me personally, I like a immersion chiller because you could scrub it. That was one of the things that we ran into. If you got hops or any kind of trub pumped through the plate chiller or any kind of counterflow chiller, you can't get in there to scrub it out. So we would have to back flush it. And then the day of the boil, I just put it in a big old bean pot with water and a lid, and I steamed it all day to try to sterilize the whole thing. And that seemed to work pretty good. But I like immersion chillers because you can clean the crap out of them and you don't have to worry about any infection.
The only problem is all those beans in there then, though, right?
Yeah. Well, you make room.
I would say that sounds like the most delicious brew day ever, James.
Yeah.
What are you going to say, Todd?
Oh, it's all about your circumstance. Like as James was saying, it's not practical for me because I have in the middle of the summer, the waters can be very hot in Texas. When we're brewing here at the office, we've had the water close to 90 degrees, right, James?
Yeah. 98 one day.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. 98 degrees coming out of the tap.
So if you are using a counterflow and it's 98 degrees, you can definitely chill your wort down to 98 degrees. But unless you're brewing with that new yeast we just talked about, you're going to have trouble. So that's the reason I use an immersion chiller, because I live in the middle of Texas.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point, and which also brings me to your tap water yesterday at the barn. I turned it on and it burned my hand. I didn't realize it was burning my hand because I don't really
the hot water, the cold water.
We put it on cold, and I was about to pour it in my cup, and I put my hand. Oh,
yeah, it's well water.
Yeah,
but you got to realize there's a 1-inch pipe going 400 yards in the ground, so it takes a long time before you get cold water out of there. I mean, it's so it takes a while, so it can be a problem. Eventually, you're going to get cold water from the bottom of the well, and probably would cool okay, but it will take a while.
I remembered that this morning in the shower because I turned it on and it was hot, and I left it like a quarter turn, which is going to be cold. And about 8 minutes into the shower, all of a sudden, I'm freezing up.
You finally woke up, huh?
I finally woke up. I like cold showers. I just don't like the intensity. I went from, hey, I guess my shower's going to be hot, to, oh yeah, I left it on cold. And it felt terrible. I would say, Jose, if it's in your budget and you're thorough with the cleaning, counterflow, I've read a lot of good things about them. Counterflow could be a way to go, but immersion is usually easier on the pocketbook. It's a lot easier. I say a lot. I try to be careful with my word choices because the feedback emails I get sometimes are ridiculous. It is, to me, easier to clean like James was saying, the immersion than it is to clean the counterflow or a plate chiller. Which I don't know. I don't honestly know all the difference between plate and counterflow, but I know people who use counterflow swear by their effectiveness because the wort's actually going, like, it's the technology that it's using does bring down your temperature quicker. But like James said, there's some sacrifices there with cleaning and price and all that.
A commercial brewery, they use plate chillers. But if you've ever seen that fixture, it's designed to be taken apart, and you can actually scrub the plates, and it looks like a big cheese press. So you stack them all together with seals, and it's got two big wing nuts, and you just tighten it back up again, and voila, you're back in cooling. And they're very efficient, but you can take them apart and clean them.
When we go to Teddy's, I want to check out, because I haven't been.
He's got one.
I know,
he's got one.
And I haven't been to Teddy's since right before they opened. I haven't been to Teddy's because we hardly ever make it to Brownwood because it's the wrong direction from Todd's ranch to the office. But I'm excited to go by there and see it because that is the system that you pretty much helped put together, dude, right?
I helped Wes put it together. He had to finish it because there was absolutely no instructions, and it was like a big puzzle piece. But I was lucky enough to get to help them brew their first batch of amber ale, and it was a good day.
You were the one telling me I need to try the amber. You said their amber tastes kind of like a fat tire, right?
It's kind of similar to that. I know we used 750 pounds of grain, and we had to crush all of that by hand. And that was an hour or so.
I love fat tire. It was last year or 2 years ago. Todd said something along the lines of, I had so much fat tire, I got burned out of it, and I bought. What was it, Todd? Wasn't that you got burned out?
I thought you were talking about when we actually went to the brewery.
Oh,
that was a lot more than 2 years ago.
No, that was 8 years ago.
Yeah, because I said that then. I was like, I was completely burned out on fat tire, and then Matt Meadows got us one off the line, and I was like, oh,
that is when it was. See, my memory is terrible, and that was 6.5 years ago, I think.
It's a very consistently good beer.
Oh my God. New Belgium does. I wonder what Matt is up to. We should have him back on the show. He was fantastic.
How about we go down there again and do a show? I
agree, dude. We need to. I don't know what Fort Collins, Colorado looks like right now with their, like, if they're back to open. I mean, I don't know. Texas, every time I talk to people, I forget that we are not every state, because people call me and they're like, oh man, how are y'all doing? I was like it's my normal life. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, really? Like, what? I was like, oh yeah. So, I forgot. Yeah, you're in a different state.
I have a cousin that lives there. I could ask him.
There you go. Boom. Todd, make it happen, please.
He goes to school there. He's going to college there. So.
Oh wait. So you encourage your family to go to college, but you don't encourage me to finish college.
Do we have another question, right?
We did. Jose, thank you so much for submitting the question. The short answer for immersion and counterflow, like Todd said, it's our situation. It's circumstantial. It seems to work better for us here in Texas doing the dual immersion way we do it. And then also, too, the cleaning and all that stuff. But as I say before, not to sound like a broken record, you find what works for you. I think it's worth it having the immersion because it's not going to be hard on the pocketbook. And I think you'll have good success compared to the difference you might spend on a counterflow, or even look into those like jaded ones and all that. There's a lot of options in immersion that you can look up and get into and not break the bank. So thank you for submitting your question. Moving on, we got one last question for this week's show. It was a text message from our buddy Chris at the hotline 325-305-6107. Chris wrote, when making a yeast starter, do you prefer using dry yeast or liquid yeast? Does it matter? I can keep costs down with dry yeast. Cheers. Chris, I only use imperial yeast, and if Owen's listening to this, I never make a starter.
Yeah.
Who I make a starter? It's stupid. Just add more imperial yeast. Now, infomercial aside, I don't make a starter. My dad and I have never made a starter. I have no experience with this. James, you've made more starters, I think, than any of the three of us. I know. Yeah. Let's pretend like we're not.
You mean more than zero?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're right.
I guess we could call Joe down here because I don't know if Joe still mates. No, Joe just.
I even got a stir plate right there.
Yep.
Look at that, you do. What you look
heated,
at that?
and I've got the stir sticks, I guess is what they call them.
Well, let's pretend like you don't know about Imperial. Or it's before you started using Imperial with every batch. And what is your decision making when it comes time to doing a starter? Is it even matter if it's dry or liquid?
With Imperial, it's not been an issue unless I'm doing a lager, and the lager is kind of a big beer. Then you're talking about yeast numbers where you can either afford to buy multiple packs or you buy one pack and propagate. I wouldn't do a starter on a dry yeast mainly because the way they produce those. And then they dry because of the fact that they're drying the yeast cells. They're packed with a lot of nutrients inside the cell itself. So there is a chance that if you do try to do a starter, they're gonna lose some of that nutrient, and they'll still consume the sugar, but your efficiency and it can be affected. Now, that being said, I have done it in the past, but usually what I would do is I'll hydrate it first. Let it get good in room temperature for, a half an hour to an hour, and then, cool it to pitching temp. And then you can go ahead and but one of the most important things is don't use distilled water and don't use RO water. Use spring water, or you can even use tap water. And it seems to work better than if you try to use RO or distilled water. The yeast cells don't like it, and it can cause problems with division. So,
interesting.
That would be my advice.
I never thought about it. Like you said, the process of how they package the dry yeast can affect the integrity, or maybe that's the build of it, the makeup of it.
Yeah, the makeup of the yeast cell itself is they engineer the nutrients in the yeast cell for quick fermentation and for the given batch size. So you take the 05 Fermentus 05 yeast. It's a good yeast. It's cheap, so it might be better to just grab 2 packs and hydrate and not worry about a starter.
It is very affordable, and it's got really high counts. So yeah, I think you're right.
I was about to put
more yeast in there.
I was about to sound so smart and go, well, what about if he just bought 2 packs of 05 because it's cheap? And James took my thunder. No, but that was the logical thinking. I think that's why we all landed there. Is if you're using dry yeast, 2 packs of 05 is very affordable. It's and then hydrate it and pitch it normal, and you still avoid. And I say avoid. Look, guys, I know I have that shtick of being lazy. It's not just lazy. I haven't had to do a starter because of the batches. Like my dad and I will, if we're doing a 10-gallon batch, we'll use 2 pats of the imperial yeast. If we're doing
you're talking 200 billion cells now. It's
right.
Probably not that by the time you get it, but it's a lot more than the competition. It's more than enough to get where you need to be without having to worry about anything else.
Right, which is why we haven't. But again, living, if I put myself in a position where it's like, well, let's pretend I didn't do a podcast that was sponsored by Imperial and they weren't such good people to me and giving us yeast for brewing. Because everyone knows I'm cheap, I might do dry, and like James just said, do 2 pads and hydrate it and pitch it normal. I'd still probably avoid a starter because of my laziness. My cheapness is not as bad as my laziness. I don't know.
No, your laziness, you would just take 2 packs and sprinkle it on the top of the beer and be done. Come on.
We hydrate when we
As
use.
of most people. But
Anyway.
one thing I would add to this is if you want to save money, you can always save your yeast from a previous batch. That's the best way of saving money on a batch of beer.
That's the ultimate cheap guy move, and I say I'm not saying that in a rude
Breweries
way.
do it all the time.
Well, that's why.
It's very common.
When I say cheap guy, listen, I attribute it to myself. I know I'm self-deprecating, but I don't mean it pejoratively. I'm saying that's the ultimate. You want to save money, you should be harvesting yeast, washing it, and reusing it. There are people on forums, Homebrew Talk. There's been many forums where people are like, "Yeah, and James on this show, I've used it for 5 pitches or 6 pitches, and then propagate.
That's a great way to save money.
It really is.
And James doesn't usually wash it, and it works fine.
Yeah. I'll just pitch right on. If I'm doing when I was playing around with that recipe, the American Light Lager, I would just, the next time I brewed, I was set up for kegging that day, and I would pump right on top of the yeast pack, and it's just to see what happened. I knew that if I've tasted the difference in flavor on the second batch, then I would probably pull the yeast off the bottom through the dump valve and wash it and do it the correct way. But I just wanted to see would it work, and it did. It worked very well.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I if the dream ever comes to fruition where my dad and I are having a brew pub of just Kolsch and alt beer, we'll be able to do that too. We'll have 2 fermenters, and then we'll just keep pitching.
Oh, I would think if I had a brewery, that would absolutely be a necessary thing to do. Because you'd have to I would have a yeast room, and we would reclaim.
Think how much money you'd save. Think how much.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's huge in a brewery.
Yeah. You want a pitchable size amount of liquid yeast for 300 gallons of beer. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And how many gazillion, I can't even count that high. I'm not good at math, though. We've established that. That's a lot of cells of yeast for 300 gallons. Wait, what like Teddy's, I'm going to bring them up again because we're going there soon. What is their system? Is it a 15 barrel? I forget what is
it's 10, isn't
10.
it, Todd?
Oh, okay.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
That's big, relatively speaking, to a home brewer. That's huge, right?
I believe it's a 10 barrel.
It's crazy. I bet, like you said, y'all's brew day on that amber was, you said 750 pounds of grain, right?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
So a 10 barrel system would be 320 gallons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. He's got enough space in his boil kettle. He told me that he could do 350.
Okay.
But he's got his hot liquor tank is like 1,100 gallons or 1,500. It's a lot. It's huge. It's the biggest vessel behind. It's right behind the mash and the boil kettle. And then he's got a cold liquor tank that holds like 1,000 gallons. So he's got cold water in a vessel, and he's got hot water in a vessel. So he's got everything squared away.
I like because
so sorry, Josh, I cut you off. So you mean that when he uses his counterflow, he can actually pump cold water through there. That's what I was curious about.
Yeah.
When we were talking about it earlier, is when it's super hot and the brownwood water is probably going to be hot. That's what he does. Okay. That makes a lot more sense to me now.
And he can also, I believe he can reclaim that water and then re-chill it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I was going to say, I love how, like, to us, Teddy, because we know Wes, right? We love Wes. Wes is an awesome person. We hung out with him in Prague. It was some of the most fun I've had.
He's okay.
Yeah. He doesn't listen. It doesn't matter.
If he's listening, sorry, Wes. You're awesome, dude.
He's
but
okay.
But to us, we know him. But Teddy's Brewhouse is unknown to 99.9% of people in the world. And how many people are like Teddy's in regards to the awesome systems they're making beer on? That, you know what I'm saying? Like how, like the beer boom, the craft beer boom. I know COVID closed down a lot of places, or the restrictions because of COVID ended up shutting a lot of places down, unfortunately. But every city we go to, and it's like, oh, there's some brewery I've never heard of in my life, and their systems are a lot of money invested in these systems, and they're making incredible beer. And you're like, that is really cool. Like, I would have never known if I didn't go down this block. And like I said, in little podunk Brownwood, and I'm not using that in a bad way. I just mean, Brownwood's not a touristy kind of city, but they have incredible beer being made by our buddy Wes. It just blows my mind, right? How many people are making really good beer in any given town. It's cool. But I totally digress from your question, Chris. Using liquid or dry, like James said, he doesn't recommend using dry for your starter, and using liquid, especially if you're trying to save some money, like if you're doing the lager and you don't want to buy an extra pouch because the numbers will need to be there for you to have good fermentation, then you can do a starter.
Yeah. Now, guys listening, don't get me wrong. You can use a starter with dry yeast. What I'm saying is in my personal opinion, what I do, the results aren't quite as good as if I use a liquid yeast.
Right. And James, I'm not going to forward you the hate mail. Don't worry, man.
I was just going to say, I'm pretty sure he said you couldn't, and everybody needs to remember what our hate mail address is.
No, I said I wouldn't. I didn't say you couldn't. I said I would not.
Right. I misheard. I heard James say this is the only way.
Should we give out his email? Let's give out his email.
He has it down there. I just have to make that email work.
Now back the tape up.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, I don't edit. People last week I met y'all hop off the call when I'm doing the closing, which I get. You don't need to hang around for the closing. You're not a guest on the show. But I totally messed up the ending, and someone messaged me and goes, "Wow, you really don't ever edit the show, do you?" I said, "No, sometimes I do, but that one was funny, so I didn't." I had like a brain fart, and then I said out loud, "I was like, oh no, I'm messing this up. Oh, so if you have a question, like I don't know why I had a brain fart. I think I had a stroke. Shouldn't joke like that, because then one of these days, when I have the stroke on the show, it's not going to be funny." But anyway,
like I was saying on the yeast, guys, if it works for you, we've always said this on every podcast when we can, that means it works.
Yep.
This is entirely my opinion on that.
Exactly. Yes. And email Jay Carlson at cmbecker.com for your feedback. No, if you want your feedback played on a future episode, text it to 325-305-6107 and get a gift card out of making fun of us or giving us good feedback. I don't actually take the really rude ones. And some people have been sending me some actually ugly ones about us. By us, it's usually me. And I just write back to them like, really? That's what you're spending your day doing? It's like writing an email or texting me about this. All right, man. Send them a picture of me, shirtless or something to get them back. I don't know how to get back. I know. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. But anyways, guys, that does it for this week's show. I appreciate y'all's time. I know, James, I'm happy to see you on because you're doing inventory right now and you're swamped. So thank you, sir, for your time. And Todd,
oh, you bet.
Let's have fun at the barn. No women, He-Man Woman Haters Club again. So thanks, guys. I'll see y'all later.
Bye.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. If you're wanting to take your brewing to the next level, go check out the sweet new Herm system available now at browtod.com or go directly to kecconnection.com/browtod and take advantage of the incredible introductory offer going on for a limited time. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.